Hey, Kate.
Good morning. How are you?
Doing okay. We lost Liz, I guess, it's a little bit discouraging, but we can do this.
Yeah, absolutely. She'll be missed, but we got lots to talk about.
We do have lots to talk about. And I guess a question I had for you is I got asked by a coachee a few weeks ago if I'd read the book The Prince.
Hmm.
And I remembered reading it like maybe in high school, but I really didn't recall much of it, honestly. And I got to see you and Liz last weekend, a week ago today. I was out there. So I read that book on the way out. And then I got to talk to that coachee again this week. And, you know, it's real. It's real what people are feeling, at least among my coachees, about how leaders are just coming in and cleaning house and moving as fast as they possibly can and taking control and also kind of nuancing their way in to all this to lead in a very command and control way, changing a lot of stuff, which it's weird, it's upsetting, it's depressing, it's all that stuff because everything we read about leadership and HBR and all the books and all the bestsellers is not that.
Yeah.
So didn't
I
know
have
what your experience was.
I haven't read The Prince, but um I was reflecting on Merrick Garland's testimony this week. And as I was thinking about it, I was like, who wants that job?
Yeah.
And it is the person who, and I'm not saying this about Merrick Garland, but just his testimony and him being in the hot seat and him, I don't know if you listened to any of it, but just being interrupted time after time and time again with people trying to characterize him as something that he isn't, um, not even letting him answer the question that they asked, and just how I wouldn't want that with, I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole, I guess they say, right? The idiom is, and just thinking about like what gives people the like that drive for power,
Mhm.
that drive for like my way is the only way, that conviction that nobody else in the room has anything worthwhile, that I am the savior, um, and just the hubris that comes with.
Mhm.
uh, and I'm also reflecting on the bad rap that women leaders get, and how, and this isn't, people say that, or the research tells us that Machiavellianism is less female than male, but there certainly are women leaders who have this, but that that collaboration, that letting voices be heard, um, technique, that care technique, and again, not all women, not all men, um, but it just gets a bad rap because the results that a command and control system gets is typically like it's not subtle, it's very loud,
Right.
and we tout the big ones, the explosion, like the turnaround, the whatever. Those are headlines, it's salacious, versus the slow churn of like, I got everyone's opinion, and then we formed a strategic endeavor that turned this around over 3 years, right? That's not salacious, it doesn't get the headlines.
Mhm.
It's not dramatic,
Right.
but it's better for all people involved.
Yeah. And it's long-term sustainable. It is a positive culture. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing consulting in Detroit, so I can compare that Detroit culture to Toyota
Mm-hmm.
because I lived close to a Toyota plant several years ago. And Toyota just generally is committed to their workforce. They refuse, when at all possible, to do layoffs because they see layoffs as a leadership failure.
Yeah.
that when you're an employee of that organization, you should be there for life and it's long term. And yeah, everybody needs to flex and shift as the company grows or changes, but they've got you, they've got that commitment. Completely different from the union environment in Detroit and the three motors and the command and control and bravado and ego. And yeah, you said it, the loud, shocking.
Yeah. Well, and there's a lot of bravado in that. There's, I did this, look at me go.
Mhm.
And when you're tooting your own horn, you're going to get the eyeballs on you.
Mhm.
When you're quietly just excelling at your job.
Mhm. Right.
It's like, I did operations for a number of years, and when everything's going well, it means that we're working our ever living butts off to
Yeah.
make sure that it goes well. Our little feet underneath the water are like spinning like crazy. But you don't get attention for that. You get attention for saving the day when something goes wrong.
Mhm.
Um, and I always looked at that as like, well, that's the opposite of what I want to do. I don't want to have to, we used to call it the foxhole. I don't want to have to gather a bunch of people in the foxhole while we fight whatever happened that hopefully, was outside of our control, and that's why we're in it. But, maybe it could have been prevented had we done something different.
Mhm. It's
So,
all of that. It's also kind of this divisiveness that is created. You're either with me or you're against me.
mhm.
And if I sniff in any way that you're against me, you're out.
Yeah, you're dead to me because I can't use you to further my endeavor. I can't use you to get what I want, what I know is right.
Mhm.
But I think about like that bet wins only sometimes.
Mhm.
And again, we hear about them because they're big and salacious and headline driven. But it only bets for, it only wins for a short period of time, and it only wins occasionally.
Mhm.
Because we know that we're not the absolute smartest people in the room all the time. It takes a lot of people to get something done, especially if it's important in a complex system.
And
So,
it's the antithesis of DEI and B. It's the antithesis of really appreciating the different opinions, the different backgrounds, histories. It's different than creating a safe environment for people to express themselves. It drives me crazy.
so in my career, I have very rarely worked directly with a command and control leader.
Uh,
Um, in tech, the last 5 years, it was a little bit of a cult of personality, and that person was replaced by someone who was very much a we don't win with me leading it all. Like, he was very collaborative. He was very uh he just was. He's like, I'm smart, you're smart. If we're both putting our work inside, then we'll come up with a smarter solution. And then he also shared credit amongst all the people. And
wow.
I know, right? The CEO. And the day that he was interim and then came in as a permanent CEO, that day I went down to the museum store. I lived in Santa Clara, and we have this museum store where you could buy Intel merchandise or technology merchandise. And I went down there and bought a new like sweater for my
Hmm.
office because I was proud to work there again. It'd
Hmm.
been a while since I was really proud. And then unfortunately, he was replaced by a new CEO that has the very opposite direction. And that was a slow decline over my happiness, my engagement with the company, my willing to do whatever it takes for the company. It was a pretty sad day.
Yeah.
But directly working for command and control, I've had very little of in tech. Thank goodness, knock on woods.
Yeah. And yet you experienced a powerful shift
Hmm.
and you're no longer working there.
Right. And layoffs happened multiple times under this new leader. And it's this, I'm thinking about other technology leaders, like, you know, this company's chubby and fat and doesn't, you know, we don't need this many engineers and blah blah blah, and then the degradation of those tools that we have in our life that no longer work as good.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and how maybe, but you know, 15% of the workers of what used to work there and the way that they did it, and it hasn't added shareholder value, it hasn't enticed advertisers to keep going, right? So I hope that we know better, that we're giving less stock in the command and control environment, at least for the big companies that I'm familiar with. I'm sure there's pockets of it, because it does tend to work, at least for a little bit.
Yeah, it's very short-term thinking. And it can work, and it is loud. And for those that love an ego boost, woo, it provides.
Yeah, it does. For that one person though, no one else feels good in the system.
Oh, everybody else is fear-based, going right back to fight, flight, freeze, reactionary thinking, bracing.
Not doing their best thinking at all,
Oh,
not able to
no.
innovate. And that, I think that's why the command and control gets the props, because in absence of psychological safety, no one does their best thinking, and therefore it elevates the one person even more.
Oh, yeah.
And their confirmation bias of, well, nobody else has an idea. That's because you scared it out of them.
Or
They
just
did.
because your pedestal keeps rising because you feel more and more smart and alone.
Yeah, as the dead bodies get piled underneath it and lifted up.
Yeah. And they sit there and go, "Oh, you stupid one, you stupid one. I knew better."
So what are you telling your clients about how to deal with it?
I've done some research, and the best I can come up with so far is many of these individuals are pretty charismatic, at least to start, and they act friendly, and they act like they want to get to know you, at least for 90 days before they start doing their thing. And so I've just told them, try to stay focused on why you're there, try to stay focused on the mission and purpose of the organization or the company. Don't get sucked into giving personal really anything, because the trend is they tend to use it against you later.
Yeah, don't trust them.
Yeah, and feel out if you're with them or against them. Just always be about the company or the product or whatever it is, and don't be offish, but just don't get personal. Don't offer too much. You just don't know. If you give it 6 months or a year, and they still are certainly on their pedestal, but aren't using it against you, then maybe you can start to loosen up a little bit. But and then just be careful. Do your very best. Don't compete with them. So if they come in with an idea and they're offering something, and you've been there a while, and definitely don't, this won't work here. No, but also don't compete. And, well, I hear you, but here's an idea that I think would work. No, they're really there to be large in charge and to win.
Yeah, I'm reflecting on when my team was going through some layoffs and they were scared. And my response to them was always, we keep doing our job until we don't have jobs to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the best way to kind of power through something like this, is do your job to your utmost ability. Don't get roped into the politics and getting pit against your peers, because no one's going to win. You're both
Right.
are going to look like idiots.
Mm-hmm.
And I love what you're saying about, like, Don't trust the individual. They're not your friend. They're your boss. They're your manager. They're your leader. And then you got to make the call over whether or not you want to trade your life, your hours, your passion, your love for that company. If it's still someplace that you want to be, see if you have other options.
Yeah, that's a big one too. It's, do not think if you work more or do more stuff, it's going to get you somehow ingratiated with this individual and work yourself to death for nothing. In fact, do the opposite. Work your hours and do your good work, but double down on self-care, self-compassion, bringing yourself that energy and life and vibrancy in other ways. Really reflect on, who do you love in your life? What do you love doing in your life? And if it was work and career before, maybe it's a good reset.
Yeah, I love that, from just the standpoint of having over identified with my work life in the past. When that's gone, it really feels like nothing. And so making sure that you've got other interests outside of work, because it doesn't matter if you save the day with them and that particular instance, there's another thing around the corner. There is just another and another. It's a beast that cannot be satiated. Exactly. So knowing what your values, what your boundaries, what you stand for, I think is so important when dealing with someone, because you do get scared. You get fearful for your job. It feels like you're going to lose. Even if it was a job that you didn't particularly care for in the past, all of a sudden it's risky. So you're like, no, you can't have it.
It's mine.
It's mine. But it's that opportunity to say, okay, do I want to be aligned with this company in the way that it's being in the market these days, or is there another option? Because oftentimes there is another option.
Yeah, and sometimes lots of them. You said know your values, which I absolutely agree with. And component of that is also knowing your value and how you calculate your value. I had a different client this morning even who is trying to do great things and left the workforce and trying to build her own company, but she quickly is getting back to, but I'm not earning enough money, and I don't need money, but I need to. And so we had to have that conversation. How do you place value on you and how you spend your time? Is it money? Is it how many projects? Is it achievement and success? Or what really is it and should it be? So yeah.
That one's really important to me, because for a long time I was under the guise that my value was very much what I produced. And so it wasn't, human connection. It wasn't, it was straight ahead. Like, I completed this project. I did it really well. I got all the kudos. I got the award, $500 extra in my recognition card, whatever. And then on to the very next one, because you're only as good as the last thing that you did. And what I missed was the human connection. There were people that I worked with, but I wasn't making the world a better place through my endeavors. I wasn't making it a shittier place, but I wasn't making it a better place. But I was feeding that beast of, what I value. I valued kudos. I valued the, whatever, but that hamster wheel is just that. It's round.
Round. I'm actually seeing you as a robot.
Next thing. What's the next thing? They say we're supposed to celebrate the win.
Woo, okay.
That really fast, so we can check that box and do it right, and then let's go on to the next thing.
Yeah.
But there wasn't deep human connection. There wasn't love. There wasn't joy. There wasn't anything outside of the hamster wheel. So that idea of what yardstick am I measuring myself by? Money is easy because our society is like, if you're wealthy, then you're
That's capitalistic.
yeah, you can buy more things. I mean, but when we really start like picking that apart, do we need it, right? Or what's more important to us?
Mm-hmm.
Where can we, go and branch out? How can we redefine that yardstick for ourselves?
Mm-hmm.
Be creative about it, because I think the monetary one is, it's been done.
Mm-hmm.
We see what happens.
Yeah,
The outcome's not that great, planet.
right.
So is there a different way that we can go about doing it?
Yeah. So when you have coachees like this or in similar predicaments, what do you suggest or recommend?
A lot of what I've already said, as far as like, it's a good time to kind of lay it all out and examine it and make choices. But I think I've gotten kind of in my past, I've gotten caught up with, this person needs to like me, so therefore, like, I have to try really hard. And that has always felt like eggshells, right? You're tiptoeing around, making sure, like, you're laughing at jokes that you don't think are funny.
Yeah.
And that inauthenticity, A, is really hard to sustain, and B, doesn't allow for you to do your best work. So my recommendations are to, take stock, have visual cues over what's important to you, so that, because in this world where, there is this chaos and this personality and the demands and the winds shift as they do, it's really hard to be anchored.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever cues you need to make sure that you're holding fast to something that's real is
Mm-hmm.
super important, because these personalities tend to make life feel not real.
Yeah.
And for me, it's been a little bit in the space of like, am I crazy? Am I? Because we are all going along with this, whatever this is. Am I the crazy one, or are we all thinking it and no one's brave enough? So, be cautious, take stock, be in control of what you want and need in your life and what's important to you.
I like your visual cues comment too. So any more insights there? What are some examples?
So I have post-it notes. I've used them at various times, because on my monitor or whatever, because I was in tech, so I look at the computer a lot.
Yeah.
But it could be if you have a desk or if you have a screensaver on your phone, right? You can change all those things to kind of make sure that you're back, that you're anchoring yourself to what is your thing. I've used a screensaver on my phone to, it said, "This too shall pass." So it doesn't, it's not poking at anybody. Someone could see it and whatever, but I would see it again and again. "This too shall pass. This too shall pass." Right. And that was a reminder to myself just to wait it out,
Mm-hmm.
because it doesn't matter if it's good or bad. It
Mm-hmm.
will pass. Good
Either
things,
way.
bad things pass.
Yeah.
And raising kids, right? Wait 2 weeks, there will be another thing that they're into. The older they get, the slower that process. But when they're little, like, just wait a couple of weeks.
Mhm.
They will no longer be crying themselves to sleep at night, but then they'll have something else. So this too shall pass. It'll go into something else. And that's how business is too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Great. Well, that gives me some more good ideas.
Wonderful.
I appreciate you.
I appreciate you.
It's hard stuff.
It is hard stuff, and it's hard to see people struggling, but they have you as their coach, and that is fantastic, because that's going to help them be able to get anchored and be able to weather the storm.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you. We'll
Thank
talk
you.
again soon.
I
Bye-bye.